Hello and welcome to Debt Free Life. My name is Sarah and I budget for my family of three, which includes myself, my husband, and our preschool aged daughter. We're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We are a two-income family and we are also bi-weekly budgeters because we get paid bi-weekly. So it just makes the most sense to me to make my budget line up with our paydays. So today I want to share with you what my budget is going to look like for the pay period of June 16th to June 29th. So my last pay period, I busted the budget. We still ended up in the green, I think, as they say. We weren't like into the negative numbers. We just had a lot less for our sinking funds than I would have liked. So the goal is to actually do a little better on that this pay period. Now, the things that caused me to bust my budget last month, some were within my control and some were not within my control. But we are going to try and keep those things within our control, under control, if that makes sense. I got these nice new highlighters. I don't know if they're actually going to be helpful at all, but I figured I would keep those on hand. The other thing to know about my budgeting is that I am a month ahead on my bills. I have a float, and so I keep money in my bank account to pay for next month's bills, and that money comes out of this month's pay, basically. I'm not explaining this very well right now. I'm going to explain it better as we go. I just want to get started. I am going to tilt my book a little bit this way just because that's how I feel more comfortable writing. So we're going to start with our income. I do a zero-based budget. So the idea then is that when we get to the bottom of the budget, we are going to have accounted for every single dollar and we will have zero money left over. Oh, I'm not sure that I like that highlighter. Actually, it feels more like a marker. But hopefully you can still see what I'm writing. I'm filming at night, so I have a bit of a shadow more than I did last time I filmed, but I think it'll be all right. Okay, so the first paycheck that we will be getting, so we're just going to call it paycheck number 1. We're going to budget $1,530, so $1,530. Paycheck number 2, we are going to budget $1,120. That's how much I expect we will get paid. This second paycheck is pretty much always exactly the same. This $1,530 can vary by like $100 more than that, but I have just chosen, this is like the lowest it ever is, so my budget will always be okay if I use that number. So that's why that is like that. Now, I also am going to have money from my float that is going to come back into this budget, but I don't know how much until I look at my fixed expenses. So let's leave some space there and move on to the fixed expenses. Now, fixed expenses, in case you're unaware, these are the things that you can't really control. I think I'm just going to keep going purple here. So they are like your bills and things that are always the same. Technically, I do count some things as my fixed expenses that might vary. Though really the only one that I can think of that has ever varied is my childcare, which is the first one that I write down here. And honestly, the only reason that it was variable last pay period is that there was an error on the part of my daycare center. So technically it should always be the same thing. That's why it's in fixed expenses, but that happened last time, so who knows. I also have some money that comes out every month for my tax-free savings account. That's what TFSA is. That's a Canadian type of savings account. I don't know if you have those in the US for my US viewers. I should be writing these numbers down. So childcare, I don't expect to pay anything in this pay period because the childcare comes out on like the 5th of the month, I think. And so it'll come out of the next pay period. Now, when I say that I'm a month ahead on my bills, I'm not a month ahead on my childcare because when I set up my being a month ahead, it was actually before I had childcare. I've been a month ahead on my bills for years now, and it's just the way that I've budgeted. And so I probably should add my childcare into my month ahead so that it's coming out of the float. But for right now, we're not going to worry about that. I have too many other things I have to worry about. So we're just going to keep putting it in the fixed expenses and it'll come out of the pay period when the expense actually happens. I have just that $25 that goes towards my tax-free savings account. Literally, it's just an automatic transfer that's been there since I opened my tax-free savings account years and years and years ago. And it's just so I can always be sure that I'm saving money. It's that idea of like pay yourself first, if you've ever heard that. I kind of try to do that. Again, I don't have any debt other than our house. So we're not too worried about that kind of thing. So anyway, RRSP is our Registered Retirement Savings Plan. Me and my husband each have one. This is not the only retirement money that we have. I didn't mention that in my last video. We also both have very good pensions with the companies that we work with that are like the best kind of pensions that you can get. So we're not terribly stressed out about saving money into our RRSPs. We do also have a financial advisor who I trust very much. And so right now we're not really contributing a ton. Really, we just contribute because it helps on our taxes at the end of the year. Again, this is all how it works in Canada. I have no idea how it works in the US, so probably doesn't apply to you if you're not a Canadian. We have $100 per pay period that goes into that RRSP. Well, like one pay period, it's mine, and then the other pay period is my husband's RRSP, so we just take turns. And then this is where we get into the stuff that's going to come out of the float. So I have this little sticky note to help remind me of what bills come out when. So because this is the 16th to the 29th, these are the dates. The column here is the dates. So anything that comes out on the 20th is going to be in this pay period. Our water only comes out once every 3 months, and I don't think July is the month for it. I should probably double check that though. So we are going to have, let me just put that there, some money go into our savings account on the 20th. Again, this is just like an automatic withdrawal that's been set up forever. This goes into our just general savings account. When we were building our emergency fund, this is how I did it. But now we have a fully funded emergency fund. So this kind of just goes into the sinking fund. So it guarantees that no matter what happens at the end of the month, I'm adding at least $50 to my sinking fund's account, even though I'm not allocating it to a certain sinking fund. But this way, if I like deplete a sinking fund, like I've almost completely depleted my clothing and gifts sinking fund, this will really help with that. And again, this only happens once a month, and it is part of my month ahead money. So I am just going to put a little like star there so that we remember that it's part of the float. Then our hydro. So this is our electricity, and in the winter also our heat. This is $277. We are on what they call budget, so it's the same amount every pay period. And then in August is when our year rolls over. So if we have paid more, then they will give us a refund. Well, not a refund, but a credit on the account. If we have not paid enough being on that budget, like if we've used more than what was budgeted, which is possible because we've been having a very hot year. We've been running the air conditioning a lot already, considering it's only June. We will have a bigger bill in August, which I actually need to start thinking about where that money is going to come from. But that is what hydro means. It's because the company is called Manitoba Hydro, which is why I write it down as hydro. It's hydroelectric power. Then finally, the last bill will be our phone bill, which is our cell phones. Me and my husband both have a cell phone, and this is $150. And if you're in the US, you're thinking, what the heck are you doing paying $150 a month for phones? And honestly, it's like the cheapest you can get a phone in Canada. I have looked and looked and looked. We don't have a lot of options for phones. Maybe if you're a Canadian living in Manitoba and you have a better price, let me know how you got that, because I feel like it's just the price of doing business. We both have cell phones. We don't have a home phone, so we need them. We also both have data on our phones, so that adds up. It just is what it is. I've kind of accepted it at this point. So I need to add those three together because that's what's going to come out of the float. So basically what I'm doing when I am adding this together and putting it in the column at the top of the float, this is going to be $477, is that, I'm canceling them out. So these three are being canceled out by this, and that's because they're already paid for. That money is already in my bank account. I could just not write these things into my budget because I know they're already paid for, but I like to keep it here as like a visual reminder that that's what's happening. This will allow us now, I don't think we need that anymore, to add up these numbers and see what we have. 1530 plus 1120 plus 477 is going to give us $3,127 to work with in this budget. Let's add these numbers together to see what we're subtracting, because we are doing the zero-based budget. 25 plus 100 plus 50 plus 277 plus 150 is going to give us 602 for this category. Okay, our next category is how I stay a month ahead. So this is what I call future fixed expenses, because I'm paying for the future. And I just alternate. Like I said, I have created this list, and my mortgage is like one section, 1320, and then everything else is 819, and I just alternate. One pay period, I save for the mortgage. One pay period, I save for the bills. The next pay period, I save for the next mortgage, and then for the bills, and so on and so forth. So in our last budget, we saved for the mortgage. So this budget, we are saving for the July bills. So I'm just literally going to write bills, and then I'm going to put July so that I know when it's for, and this is going to be $819 because that's the total without the mortgage. Easy. This $819 is literally just going to sit in my checking account until I need it. I'm not too strict on like closing out my budget in the way where like I don't drop my bank account to zero. I just try to keep a general idea. Honestly too, I am rounding these numbers to the nearest dollar, to make this easier for the sake of this video. So just keep that in mind. My actual like balance in my bank account is not always going to reconcile perfectly with these budgets as I write them out. But honestly, the exercise of just writing out your budget, thinking like how much money do I have for my different categories, and making sure you have enough money for each of your categories is really, in my mind, why I budget. Now, after future fixed expenses, we have our variable expenses. So these are really the things that you can control and you can cut if you want to save money. Oh, I forgot to take out this money. So we're carrying forward our budget so we know how much money we have to use for our variable expenses. So we had $3,127 in income from up here, and then we spent $602 for our fixed expenses. So that left us with $2,525 before we then took out our future fixed expenses. So we're basically just saving that money, $819, and that's going to leave us with $1,706 for our variable. Now, my variable, I have had the same numbers in here for ages. Groceries, I have $400. Like I said, we use, well, I may not have said it in this video, we use Walmart delivery to get our groceries. Unfortunately, we had a very bad experience with that in our last pay period, and so I may explore some alternatives to that. We don't have a car, so getting a big grocery order, which is, I think, an easier way to meal plan, is if I can like order a week's worth or 2 weeks worth of groceries at once. So I do want to be able to get delivery, because that's just too much to have to like bring on the bus, or I don't really want to have to go by taxi or anything like that. But that's why that number is a bit higher, because when we order for once a week, that ends up being about $25 each time for delivery and tip. So $50 of that is just going towards basically the transportation of the groceries. So even though we don't have a transportation category in here, we do still have to pay for transporting of certain goods. So that's why that number might seem high to you. Depending on where you live, I know like groceries can vary wildly. We also have $100 for miscellaneous. This is things that pop up. I already know that in this pay period, I need to think about buying a new lunchbox for my daughter, because she is really in need of one. And I've been looking at some on Amazon, so I will probably be using some of that there. And then I also just ran out of ink on my printer today, so I definitely will be using that miscellaneous category this time. Now, our eat out category, which I busted through last time, but we're still keeping it at $50. I kind of would like to try not eating out this pay period if I could help it, and then have that money for some fun savings challenges, which is something that I'd like to do. So I'm leaving it there, but I'm hoping that that money will not be touched. And then our fun budget, again, $150, 50 for me, 50 for my husband, and 50 to do things with my daughter. We don't have any major plans. I think we might go to the mall this weekend, which is coming up. So we might end up getting lunch in the food court or something, which I could count that as eat out, or I could count that as fun, depending on how I'm feeling when I close out my budget after the 2 weeks. But other than that, I don't think we really have any plans to do anything that's going to cost any money in the fun category. So hopefully that could also give us some extras for some fun savings challenges. I also, for my personal $50, would like to spend less of it. Oftentimes what that money goes towards, well, first of all, it goes towards subscriptions for things that are like my hobbies. So I have a Canva subscription, which comes out of my $50. My husband uses his for, like, he has a subscription to a like soccer app where he can watch soccer from Europe because he's really into that sport. And so like subscriptions come out of that money, but then whatever's left over, usually I end up like getting food at work or, you know, things like that I probably don't need if I'm smarter about the groceries that I buy. So I really want to try and focus on not eating food at work and really, you know, maybe having some of that $50 left over again for those fun savings challenges. If you know of any fun savings challenges, let me know in the comments down below. I know there are tons of people on YouTube that also have like Etsy shops that sell these things. I'm thinking of creating some of my own, maybe. I'm specifically wanting to save money for our Disney trip. That's really what I'm focused on right now. So Disney themed ones would be great. But this total, as always, is going to be $700. It's always the same. And so that leads us then to our sinking funds. I have filled up the paper more than last time, I think. Now for our sinking funds right now, we need to think about Disney, and we need $385 for Disney every pay period if we want to have the $15,000 that we need for our trip at the end of October in 2024. I calculated how many pay periods there were. I divided 15,000 by that number of pay periods, and that's why that number is $385 per pay period. It's from when we started saving. And I think we have about, well, we had $1,540, and then we added $775 last pay period because we got some bonus money. I will have a video shortly closing out my budget from last pay period so you can see why $775. I keep talking about how we busted our budget, but how did we have that extra money? And I will explain that in that other video. So be sure to subscribe, and you'll be able to check that video out because it'll be coming soon. But the problem is I know that in our next pay period, when we're saving for our mortgage payment, so like right now we're saving for the bills in July, but next month we're going to be saving for the mortgage for August, which is going to be $1,320. So this number is going to be higher. This number is going to stay the same, so it's going to leave us with less money in our sinking funds. And I don't think, I already did some calculations, I don't think we're going to have $385 for Disney in the next pay period. So I kind of want to try and do more than $385 on Disney this time. But the other kind of wrench in the works is that my daughter also wants to do ballet in the fall, and I'm happy for her to do ballet. I think it'll be really fun. She did like a Mummy and Me class last fall and really loved it, and so she's ready to move on to like the big girl ballet, which, I mean, she's still a preschooler, but that costs about $500. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just put away all the money for the dance class from this pay period. So we had $1,706 and we spent $700 for our variable. So that's going to leave us with $1,006. So the dance is going to be $500. So that's going to leave us with $506 for Disney. And I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw all the Disney money into that. And that is going to leave us with $0 left over at the end. And we have our zero based budget, $0 left over at the end. like I said, I kind of want to do better with my variable spending this month just to have some room for sinking funds. But otherwise, I think we are on track, doing well. I'm happy with where we're at with our money. And obviously, we are very thankful that we, both are able to work and that our daycare costs are as low as they are, because I know from watching other videos that in other places in the world, those daycare costs can really eat into your income. That's it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me, and hopefully you've subscribed. If not, give us a like. And it's just me, and I'll have videos posted every week. It's hard for me to commit to a schedule as busy as I am, but if you subscribe, you will definitely be getting at least one video per week. I will guarantee that. If you haven't already watched my other budget video from June for the first 2 weeks of June, I will link it on the screen now, and you can go check that out.